Okay, guys, just doing a quick video here. Buddy of mine asked the question on how I go about trimming my brass, and more specifically, how I go about trimming my pistol brass. Uh, just to give you guys a layout, this is the RCBS Trim Pro. I got it about 15 years ago. It was with the Rock Chucker kit that I started up reloading. So I'm in no way a progressive reloader, and I don't shoot all that much. So pistol reloading and rifle reloading is more of a hobby than anything else for me. It's not a way for me to explicitly save money. It's just a hobby, and I save a little bit of money in the time as well. So let me go through a little bit of the parts. I know everything on that I'm going to tell you isn't the exact name of it, but this is just what I use to describe stuff, so you're not as confused. Starting from the left to my right, this is the hand crank. Moving down, we have the coarse adjustment. It's this knurled bit here. Then we have the fine adjustment. It's this bit that has lines on it, and it's threaded onto the coarse adjustment. The coarse adjustment slides back and forth on the barrel itself. I'm just going to refer to this as the block. This is the cutting head right here. The case guide, and then we have the vise or the shell holder here. So that's just a rundown. So there's two ways to trim brass, or to get the correct size of brass that you want. The first way is kind of a little bit more labor intensive than the second way, and I don't think I think maybe the manual covers it, but as always, refer to your manual if you have any real questions. This is just how I've done it throughout the years, and what works for me. So pistol brass inherently does not need to be reloaded, or sorry, pistol brass inherently does not need to be resized after the first firing. However, I like doing it just to get it back to that size, and after the second one, I don't worry about trimming it. Like I said, it's just something that I do. It's a habit that I'm in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of fired brass. Of course, this is deprimed and everything. The measurement I'm looking for on 45 Auto by the Layman Guide, or Lineman Guide, or whatever you want to refer to it as, is 0.898. That's the overall case length. That's not counting the bullet. So if I look at this piece of brass here, I'm coming in about, the high point of this is about 0.93, 0.94, just about. So this is a good candidate for us to be trimmed on. So obviously I know this brass is too long. Well, how am I going to get it to shorten up? We'll go through the long way first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert it into my shell holder over here on the right hand side, your left. One thing to note with this is if you keep pumping out a lot of brass, sometimes that this fixture can get crooked, and one of your pins here can suck its way back in, and then you'll have a crooked piece of brass. Usually you'll tell it because it's not lining up right here. So just be sure that your vise is on there. So with my cutting head, and there is an Allen wrench screw head on here, or internal wrenching screw that affixes the cutting head to the barrel, and it also holds the case guide in there. So I have a 45 caliber case guide. I'm going to start it in here, and I'm not cutting. I'm just trying to get the guide into the casing. Sometimes you can press down on the handle and get that lined up a little bit better. So what I've essentially done is I've taken my case, I've taken my trimming head and contacted my case. If I were to just start cutting, I would end up cutting it all the way down till I bottomed out on my fine adjustment here. So I know this is 0.9, what do we say, 4. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my coarse adjustment to that setting. I'll take my Allen wrench screw, or my Allen wrench itself, tighten down my set screw on the coarse adjustment. I'll still have the fine adjustment, so that's key to have that bit of slack in there. Next thing I'm going to do is if I were to tighten my fine adjustment down, this would just spin and it wouldn't cut any material off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my my fine adjustment clockwise. I'm going to push in on it, making sure it makes full contact with the case, the cutting head. And then I'm going to screw this fine adjustment down until it stops. I'm not turning it real hard, I'm just using my fingertips, so it's bottomed out completely at that point. There is a witness hole right here, or kind of a it's a dot on the side. I've colored it green. You can't really see it from the angle that the camera's at. But what essentially you do is you use these lines on here as reference marks, and I believe they're 1/1000th a piece. So if I need to come down 4/1000ths, I'm just going to pick a spot here. I'll use my pointer here. And I want to make this distance shorter, so I'm going to turn this clockwise again to bring it off of here. You'll notice the gap opening up between the block and the fine adjustment. So I'm going to I'll go 3 lines. So there's 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines right there. Holding that position, get my Allen wrench again, and tighten down my fine screw. So essentially what I've done is I've put a gap in between the block and the fine adjustment. So now whenever I push, and I'm not pushing with a lot of force, I am turning my cutting head clockwise, and I am removing ever so slightly that separate distance, the difference between those two distances. So it's hard to see. I don't have the best camera, but I'm slowly removing material. And I'm just using an open palm. You don't need to really push down on this. This cutting head will cut. I believe it's cobalt steel, and it's going to cut through the brass really well. So after a few turns, you're going to notice that you have 0 resistance. At that point, I'll take this case out of the holder, take my caliper, put it onto the case, and there I'm falling right at 0.89. There's 0.899. That's a good length for it. So that piece of brass is sized. So now, essentially, any piece of brass I put in here, no matter how long it is, as long as these two, my coarse adjustment and my fine adjustment, stay stationary, every piece of brass will come out the same as this piece of brass. So let me take another one. This piece of brass here measures in at 0.95 at the high point, 0.94 at the low point. So this one's way oversized. I'm going to put it in my holder, line it up, and then I'm going to not even apply a lot of pressure. I'm going to let the cutting head do all the cutting. You guys can probably pick it up, but there's shavings coming off. And you probably didn't hear it, but I can hear it. It doesn't have as much friction against it. So let it go. I bring it up out. Put it in my holder, or put it in my caliper. This is coming in at 0.9. 0.9 at the high side, 0.99 at the low side. So that one's good. So the final process in sizing this case would be to take your reamer and to just knock that sharp edge. Because whenever you get done with these, you're going to have a flat surface, and there's going to be a little bit of a lip on the outside of your casing. And you're not pushing hard. You don't need to put a taper on the mouth of this case. The only thing you're doing is trying to knock that sharp edge off so you don't have any hang-ups in your chamber or whenever you seat your bullet. So that's kind of the longer way. We'll do one more here to show you. And I haven't touched my coarse adjustment or my fine adjustment. It's all off of that first initial case. So put it in, start trimming. Got a little bit of resistance. Take it out. Check it. And we're coming at 0.899, 0.899, 0.899 or 0.898. So it's coming out good there. So that is the kind of labor intensive way. Normally I'd do probably 10-15 rounds of that in that style, and I'd check every 10th or 15th round. our casing, just to verify that my coarse adjustment or my fine adjustment hasn't moved. So the second way we can do it is, this is the kind of cheater way. Not really cheating way, but it's the quicker way to end up going about this. So in order to set this up, I'm going to loosen my fine and my coarse adjustments. Okay, line these up for you guys. So there. So now I'm bottomed out, I'm all the way out, and you can see that they're loose. So how am I going to size this? Well, basically, I like to set aside one piece of brass, and I'll usually label it. This is a factory piece of brass, so this is sized from the factory. If I measure it, it's going to measure right in at 0.899, 0.898, so almost 0.9. So it's perfect, pretty much a perfect size piece of brass. So I'm inserting it into my vise here. I'm going to push my barrel all the way down, so my cutting head contacts the mouth of the case. At that point, when it's fully contacted, I'm going to make sure I have zero clearance between here. I'm going to push my coarse adjustment in, I'll tighten that down, and then I like to loosen my fine adjustment, give it one more push in on the casing, give it tighten, and I'm just using my fingertips again till it stops. Give that a nice little tighten down. So what I've done here is I've set my cut depth or my cut length using a factory case that I know is cut to length. So in theory, I should be able to take this piece of brass. Let's see what it measured in at, so we know it's longer. This is measuring in at 0.93, almost 0.94. Put it in our cutting head, or our holder here. So now using mild pressure, cut. Let me get my caliper. If everything worked out right, we should have, yep, 0.9. We're coming in at 0.9, so I could adjust it a little bit more. Let me take my trimmer here. See what we come up with now. Yeah, that was it. 0.899. That's what we're about coming in at. So that's another size of piece of brass. So that's the two ways we did it. Just to recap everything, we did two different ways of resizing our brass to get our depth resized. First way, we took a long piece of, or a fired piece of brass that was longer than the overall case length that we wanted. Put it in our vise, and we slowly trimmed our way down. If it wasn't coming in quite at what we wanted, we could adjust this either way. Pistol brass is a great way to learn how to do this process, because pistol brass is more forgiving than rifle brass. So we did kind of the long way, the exploratory way, and then we did the for sure easy way. We took a piece of brass, wasn't fired, that we knew was the right length, and we used it to set our cut depth on our trimmer. So pretty basic, guys. Like I said, this is a bare bones kind of trimming guide. I hope it helped anybody out who's looking into getting into reloading or had any questions about it.